MIME transfer encoding with respect to the 7-bit means that are data all represented by short lines of ASCII character, because ASCII is represented using 7-bit of data. If you are going for 8-bit data, 8-bit information is there, then the lines are short, but there may be non-ASCII character also. If it is a ASCII character, the higher bit will be 1. That is represented with in the terms of 8-bit. If you are going for binary representation, but you are not restricted with respect to number of bits of block, okay, at that time not only may non-ASCII characters, it may not be a non-ASCII character be present, but the lines are not necessarily short enough for the SMTP transport. It may not be necessary with respect to the short enough for the SMTP transport. Next is quoted printable, that is encodes the data in such a way that if the data being encoded are mostly ASCII text, whatever the if you want to encode the data in such a way that the encoded are mostly in the form of ASCII text, the encoded form of the data remains largely recognizable by human, because ASCII characters are as it is equal to all the alphabetical language or your English language or any representation. You can do it using the ASCII text that is easily recognizable or readable by the human being. That's why it is called as quoted printable format. Okay. Then base 64 encodes data by mapping 6-bit blocks of input to 8-bit block of output. Whatever the encoded data is there, it is a base 64 format. Whenever we are giving the input of 6-bit blocks of input value, that will be converted into 8-bit blocks of output, all of which is printable ASCII characters. Whatever the 8-bit block of output we are getting, that can be converted into ASCII characters. That will be easy for human being to read. That is the main thing we are checking with respect to encodings. Okay, X token is in named non-standard encoding format, that is the X token format. Here example of MIME message structure they have given. See here, it is not that much complex. Here you can see that, as I told you, first it will be representing, is it visible? The alphabets are very font size is very small, that's why I'm asking, is it visible, guys? Now I have zoomed it. Can anyone reply?
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Yeah, and here you can see that MIME version is 1, and as I shown you in the previous class, the header or envelope data will be present as how, from, who is sending that information or message, that is with respect to the from, to is to which address we are sending it, and subject what you are want, yeah, what you want to send it in this message. Content type is multi-part or mixed type of message we are sending, means what type of information we are putting. Mixed type or multi-part is you are combining all the type, audio, video and text, plain text or message, everything we are combining and sending it, then it will be a mixed type or multi-part. Okay, boundary, unique boundary 1, and this is a preamble area of multi-part message. Mail readers that understand multi-part format should ignore this preamble. If you are reading this text, you might want to consider changing to a mail reader that understands how to properly display the multi-part message. This boundary part you will be simply ignoring if you are transmitting in the form of multi-part message type. Okay, then unique boundary 1, one more boundary, some text appear, means whatever the text you have written there as a main message, that will appear here. Note that the preceding blank line means no header fields were given, and this is text which characteristics of US ASCII, it could have been done with the explicit typing as in the next part. Whatever the, see, if I am taking with respect to unique first boundary, I have given the space between this previous one to next one. Then you are writing some message. Without the header, if you are writing means it is a normal text message using a US ASCII characters. Okay, here next one is one more unique boundary is given. Content type is text or plain text. Character set is US ASCII type. Okay, this could have been part of the previous part, means it can be a part of the previous part of text, but illustrates explicit versus implicit type of body part. You can represent this in terms of explicit or implicit type of body part of your mail. Okay, that will be your text only. But first you will be writing one line, one message also I will show you with respect to this format. Okay, and what should be the main first text boundary with respect to this one, and what will be the what will be the text part for this one, and what will be the text part for this. All these things I will show you with one example with respect to the mail only. Okay, here you see with respect to the boundary 1 and 2, sorry 1, and another boundary 1, content type multi-part parallel boundary, unique boundary is 2. You can start with the boundary 2. Content type is audio or basic type. Okay, and content transfer encoding base 64 means you will be transferring the audio in the format of 8 and what base 64 encoding is 800 hertz single channel mu law format audio data has to be transmitted. That's why you are providing the unique boundary 2. That is, in that you will be attaching all the remaining parts or any of the information you want to add it, like attachments, images, audios and videos and all. Okay, and here one more in the boundary, content type is image in the format of JPEG. Okay, content transfer encoding base 64, encoding the image data and Gaussian. You will be encoding it and then transferring it. Unique boundary 1, unique boundary 2 and 1. Content type is text or enriched data. And this is bold, italic, rich text and italic or bold, smaller as defined in the RFC 1896. See, if you want to change the fonts of the data, means if you want to make the word bolder, if you want the one line only italic format, and if you want to do extra things like changing the fonts and all those things, if you are doing it, the format of that will be represented in the format of RFC 1896. Okay, isn't it bigger, cool and bigger with respect to that representation? Next is unique boundary 1, that is content type message 1, and also in last they are representing from mail in the format of ASCII US format to also whatever the address we have typed, sending address and from address and to address will be there, and subject is there. Everything will be represented in the format of ASCII US ASCII format. Content type is plain text and character set ISO 8859 one format. Content transfer encoding quoted and printable, and additional text in ISO 8859 one goes here, and boundary unique we'll see. Two it is not showing here because I have put it in the blanks site, that's why. And when I have sent and subject is represented through Gmail ID only, we have secured it is. And you can see I'll show you both with respect to example also with respect to this also. Okay, here you can see. What is the first part, from and to? Yeah. Here in mail ID, you can see the first boundary with respect to, see, all the from and to address is here, and the first boundary 1 is represented with this part of the message. Okay, only content of the message with respect to that. Here you can see the first boundary, second boundary is there. Now second boundary will be having the content. As I told you with respect to this, second boundary is this. First boundary is empty. We have kept here. So in the first boundary only, second part, you will be having the actual information for what reason we are sending this information. Okay, and this is the completion of first part. Here you can see we have end that first boundary part also here only. Okay, in that first boundary only, related to that, we are going to give the information. See, whenever we are breaking the messages like this is one part of message, we have given the break, next message, break. In that way, we can divide the whole boundary one part in many parts. Okay, that is the actual represent. Here also you can see fonts we have changed, given the color also, we have given the italic representation also. All those things you can see here. See, underline we have given, links we have put. Okay, and conference website details with respect to that, and also this till here, till this line, you can see this very small and very imaginary line you can see, na? Till here it represent fully the boundary one part. Okay, from here till the end of this text, you will be having the boundary 1. After this, you will be having the boundary 2. This, after this, whatever the line, whatever the data we are adding, that will become a boundary 2. Here we have put only one PDF data, that is one poster. You can add audio also here, you can add video also here. All those things will come under this boundary line 2 only. Okay, that is boundary line 2. This above part, here you can take the first part as ASCII character part, second part as your this thing hypertext part with the representation of font and coloring. That's why you can take it as a, you can represent it as a hypertext format. Okay, and next we'll go back towards the our examples. Okay, this one is done. Next we have native and canonical forms with respect to native forms and canonical. If native form, the body to be transmitted is created in the system native format, the native character set is used, and where appropriate local end of line conventions are used as well. The body may be a Unix style text file or sun raster image or a VMS indexed file or an audio data in a system dependent format stored only in the memory, or anything else that corresponds to the local model for representation of some form of information. Fundamentally, the data is created with native form that corresponds to the type of specific by the media type. If you are going for native type, all the whatever the text file we are adding, whatever the video file, audio file, whatever these things we are adding, if you are representing in the form of native form, then always it will represent, or it will specify the media type, what data type we are going to include in your mails. Okay, and canonical form, the entire body including out of band information such as record lengths and possibility file attribute information is converted to the universal canonical forms. The specific media type of the body as well as its associated attributes dictate the nature of canonical form that is used. Convention to the proper canonical form may involve character set conversion, transformation of audio data compression or various other operations specific to the various media types. If character set conversion is involved. However, care must be taken to understand the semantic of the media type, which may have stronger implication for any characteristic conversion. Example with regards to the synthetically meaningful characters in a text symbol other than a plain. As I told you, as I given the example with respect to synthetically meaningful characters representation other than a plain text. Plain text can be represented in black and white, whatever you are typing in the actual standard format of a mail. Okay, if you are typing, you will be having the standard format. If you want to do the changes with respect to font and designs and all, synthetically meaningful characters are represented, okay, in that way. And canonical form, that is the entire body including the out of band information. Means if you want, as I told you, images will be represented in the form of JPEG. If you are putting the different format of the image, then it has to be converted into a standard format of the image, okay. Then only you can transmit it. Canonical form, if we are representing video in the form of MPEG, then it is the actual standard format of transmission of data through mail. But if it is not in the MPEG format, then convert the data into the actual standard format, then transmit it. That is the actual representation or conversion in the form of canonical form, okay. Next is SIME. S or MIME functionality, how we are going to transmit the data in different formats. First is enveloped data, consists of encrypted content of any type and encrypted content, encryption keys for one or more recipients. If you want to transmit for more number of recipients, then also encrypted content and encrypted keys are present in this enveloped data, okay. Next is signed data. A digital signature is formed by taking a message digest of the content to be signed and then encrypting that with the private key of the signer. The content plus signature are then encoded using the base 64 encoding. A signed data message can only be viewed by a recipient with SR-MIME capability. Signed data means if you want to transmit the highly secured data, at that time digital signature are used. Simply digital signature means all the data, whatever the message we are typing in the mail, that should be encrypted, and using that message digest, you are going to sign, the authorized person has to sign it, and the signed data is also encrypted using the private key of the signer. Means who is sending, he will become a signer, his private key has to be used for the encrypting your sign. The content plus signature, whatever the content you are sending through the mail, that should be added with the signature, and then you are going to encode it using a base 64 encoding format. The signed data message can only be viewed by a recipient with SR-MIME capability, secured multi-purpose internet mail extensions. If you have those extensions, then only the data can be viewed to the recipient. If they doesn't have this type of capability, then they can't view those information. Clear signed data, only the digital signature is encoded using the base 64. Means here in the signed data, message and the signature both are combined and you are encoding that. But here only with respect to the cleared signed data, means only digital signature is encoded using the base 64 method of encoding, okay. As a result, recipients without SR-MIME capability can view the message content, although they cannot verify the signature. But they can't verify it or they can't see the signature who has sent it. Okay, that they can't view because the digital signature is encoded in the format of base 64 format. If the recipient doesn't have that format representation or format viewing capability, then he can view only the content, but he can't view the signature. Okay, and signed and enveloped data, signed only and encrypted only, and entitles may be nested so that encrypted data may be signed and signed data or clear signed data may be encrypted. Here signed and enveloped data, if you are going for only signed and encrypted only, entitles may be nested. Means if your envelope data is signed and envelope data is encrypted and signed data is also encrypted, then it can be shown that it is a signed or signed data or a clear signed data may be encrypted whenever we are going for signed and enveloped data. Envelope data also has to be included. Here we have seen only encoding of the signed data. If you are going for signed and envelope data, you are going to encrypt the signed data also and your envelope data also, and then you are going to transmit it. Next we have cryptographic algorithms used in SRMIME format. Whatever the algorithms we are going to use to encrypt the information. Okay, and for functions, create a message digest to be used in forming a digital signature. At that time, it must support SHA-1 hash function, and receiver should support MD5 for backward compatibility. Whenever you are creating any of the digital signature using the message digest, always you should or you must have the transmitter or sender has to support SHA-1 form of hash function. Receiver should support MD5 of backward capability with the backward capability to find out the digital signature. Okay. Next is encrypt message digest to form a digital signature. Sending a and receiving agent must support DSS. DSS is one format of your encryption method, and sending agent should support RSA encryption. Receiving agent should support verification of RSA signature with a key size of 512 bits to 1024 bits. Whenever we are seeing with respect to encryption message digest to form a digital signature. With respect to digital signature, if you are seeing, always sender and receiver must support with respect to DSS algorithm to verify and rectify the digital signatures. But sending agent should always support RSA encryption, and receiver agent also should support the RSA signatures with key size of 512 to 1024 bits. If their receiver is verifying with respect to RSA signature and also key size is provided, then he can easily decode it and verify the RSA signatures, and encrypt session key for transmission with the message. Session key will also has to be encrypted and transmitted. At that time, what type of encryption we can use? See, sending and receiving agents should support Diffie-Hellman method of keys. Okay, and sending and receiving agents must support RSA encryption with key size of 112 to 1024 bits. Encryption key also should be you should support the RSA encryption also, and key size should be in this size only. And Diffie-Hellman method, if they are using, no need to verify with respect to the key, because Diffie-Hellman certification will be verified. If the certificate is present with respect to transmitter and receiver, then a key will be present in that Diffie-Hellman certificates only. Then easily they can encrypt the data which has been transmitted and received also. Encrypt and decrypt easily using Diffie-Hellman method. And encrypt message for transmission with one-time session key. If you are using the one-time session key, then encryption of the message has to be done before transmission. Sending and receiving agent must support the encryption with triple DS method. Okay, triple DS method is one type of encryption. Sending agent should support encryption with AES method of encryption. Sending agent should support the encryption with RC2 or 40. Means these three type of encryption methods can be used to transmit the encrypted message with one-time session key methods. Okay, and create a message authentication code. If you want, see, as I told you, whenever we are transmitting any message to the internet, you need to have a message authentication code, because each and every message will be converted. One second. Yeah. Yeah, each and every message, whatever you are transmitting as a mail information, that has to be converted into strings of information, has to be converted into blocks. That block has to be encrypted, and then you are calculating the MAC calculation. After that, you are padding the MAC calculation, and then once again encrypt it and then transmit it. For that reason, you are going to create the MAC, that is message authentication code. How to create that one? Receiving agent must support the HMAC with SHA1, and sending agent should support the HMAC representation. One second. Where I am. And next is SR MIME content types. Multi-port, that is subtype is if it is a signed part, then description, a clear signed message in two parts. One is the message and the other is a signature. That is a multi-part. You will be having the message part separately and you will be having the signature part separately. If you are going for application type, then PKCS7 MIME, that is a subtype of application. Signed data, if you are going for signed data, a signed SR MIME entity will be used here. And if you are going for envelope data, the encrypted SR MIME entity is used. And if you are going for generated signed data, then degenerate signed data, an entity containing only public key certificates, then no need to generate the signature with respect to this type of representation. And compressed data, a compressed SR MIME entity is used. And if you are going for signature signed data, the content type of signature subpart of a multi-part or signed message. It will be whenever you are transmitting a signed data, the content type of a signed subpart of a multi-part or signed message has to be transmitted using this type SR MIME content type. Securing a MIME entity, that is SR MIME secures a MIME entity with a signature encryption or both. Whenever we are securing the information or whenever you are transmitting any information, then if you are using signature and encryption both, then high level of security you can provide for the transmission of information through MIME. Okay, and the MIME entity is prepared according to the normal rules for MIME message preparation. Whenever you are preparing the MIME messages, then it will be following the normal rules with respect to MIME message preparation. The MIME entity plus some security related data such as algorithm identifiers and certificates are processed by SRMIME to produce what is known as the PKCS objects, packet security objects. Whenever security related data or algorithm identifiers and certificate identifiers are used whenever we are creating the message. A PKCS object is then treated as message content and wrapped in MIME uh, transmission method. And in all cases, the message to be sent in converted to canonical form. See, whenever we are not you're using the method of or format of the transmission, if it is not in the actual format which can be transmitted or supported by the MIME format, then you have to go for the canonical form, where it will be converting all the data or type of information into the actual standard formats, then only you can transmit it. Okay. Then if you are going for envelope data, the steps for preparing the envelope data in MIME format are: generate a pseudo-random session key for a particular systematic encryption algorithm. Whenever we are checking related to envelope data, then you have to create one session key, that is with respect to pseudo-random format. Session key is generated means then you are going to encrypt the using symmetric encryption algorithm. Means symmetric encryption algorithm, whatever the key we are using at the transmission end, the receiver end also receives the same type of key, and he can decrypt the information using that key. That is symmetric encryption algorithm. Then for each recipient, encrypt the session key with the recipient's public RSA key. Whatever the encryption session keys are there, that key also has to be encrypted using public RSA key. Okay, because that session key or symmetric encryption keys should not be received by any of the hackers. If they are receiving it, the envelope data can be easily taken back or decrypted by any of the person. That's why that a session key also has to be encrypted by using public RSA key. Okay, and for each recipient, prepare a block known as recipient info that contains an identifier of recipient's public key certificate, an identifier of algorithm used to encrypt the session key, and decrypt the encrypted session key. See, whenever we are transmitting the information for each recipient, we are preparing one block, that is recipient info, that contains the identifier of recipient's public key certificate and an identifier of algorithm used to encrypt the session key. See, whenever you are writing the recipient's name there, it will find the certificate, he is certified to transmit that information or not, and you will be finding out what type of algorithm they are using and what type of encryption method we can use to encrypt that data by knowing the recipient information. Okay, and encrypt the message content with the session key. Whatever the session key we are using, we are going to encrypt the whole message using the session key. That is related to envelope data.